Hello and welcome to the Bucketlister Podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford, along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Bucketlister Podcast. I am your host, Keith Crockford, and today I'm back chatting with the legend that is Dave Blower. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Keith. Hello, everyone.
So you'll remember, if you listened to my episode last week, that I did my top 5 bucket list trips in order from 5 to 1. And I actually cheated a little bit because mine ended up being 6 in the end because I couldn't quite get it down to 5. But I've challenged Dave today with the same challenge that I had last week. And that is to give us his top 5 bucket list trips that he's been on. So he's been frantically trying to put his list together. And we're going to go through that list today. And we're going to ask him reasons why those trips have made it onto his top 5 list. So, Dave, how was the challenge?
It was very difficult, Keith. I've got 5. The order could change at any time, depending where I am in the year. Oh dear, they're all great for different reasons, and I've missed some brilliant trips out as well, but. You said 5, so I've really tried to stick to it.
Well, it's actually your second list as well, isn't it? Because you sent your first list through, and then I messaged you back on WhatsApp and just said, "Are you leaving this one out?" And then you were like, "Oh no, I'm now going to change it all."
Yeah, I have changed it. That one comes quite high in the ranking as well, but there's only it's difficult, Keith.
But I mean, we travel together a lot. We've done lots of trips together. Some of these ones that have gone on your list, we've done together. So I know what they mean to you because, you've done podcasts on some of these episodes as well. So let's just crack on then. What comes in then, Dave, at number 5 on your top bucket list trips that you lead and that you've been on?
My number 5 is our learn to dive trip, or diving trip, actually, for others in Gozo. It could so easily move up the scale, but I put it there. I put it there because it's a brief trip, and it's different from the others I'm going to mention in that our bucket listers apart from me for a third of the week, really, when they're actually learning to dive. So it's not the same, I don't think, as some of the other treks and trips we go on where we're all together all of the time. So only for that reason have I put it at number 5.
What makes Gozo such an amazing trip for you, Dave?
Well, where do I start again? First of all, there's a particular skill involved and having been in education, it is great for me to see people learning things, and I seeing the confidence of the bucket listers going from I can't do this, am I sure? I don't like my face in the water, to then on a boat diving a wreck in beautiful, clear water and smiling underwater as well and excited by it. That gives me a really great buzz. So I have to say, from a bucket lister point of view, it's great to see people mastering this world, really, this new world for them. So that's fantastic. There's another reason as well, and that's a personal one. I mean, I've been a diver for a long time, had a big break in the middle, but coming back to it again, it just reminds me of the serenity and the beauty there is underwater, and it's just so good for the soul. I mean, that sounds a bit woo, but it's so good. You come up so relaxed, and you've just been overawed sometimes by what you've seen and experienced.
And I think a surprise for a lot of bucket listers as well. And I know you felt this when I first took you over to Gozo, was just actually how lovely Gozo is as a place. And I think a lot of people think of, like, obviously Gozo is the sister island of Malta.
Yeah.
And people have seen, photos of Malta and think of it as that tourist destination where lots of Brits go and have their holidays. But where we stay in Splendid isn't really like that, is it?
Not at all. Again, it's one of the few beaches and bays, little restaurants dotted around it, full of the Gozo people. Actually, I mean, there are tourists there, but it's mainly Gozo people, and you see it during the day. I mean, one of the lovely things is in the morning you walk down to the beach, and mums have dropped their kids off at school, and they're in there with their toddlers, just splashing about in the water. These are the local people, not tourists. Later on in the day, the school comes down, and they've all got their little green hats on, and they're learning to swim. And then in the afternoons and evenings, all the old folks like me are in there bobbing about in the water, all talking and socializing. It's just got such a lovely feel to it, a lovely vibe. It's just gorgeous,
And I know you're the same as me, that you love your food like I do. Not so much, we don't love it quite as much as Jake, obviously, but like we do like our food. And I think the variety of that Mediterranean cuisine that you get over there is, I mean, I know we love the Indian restaurant in Splendid. I know that's one of our personal favorites, and it's not quite very Mediterranean, but just to be able to go and order fresh fish, and it's just such a lovely feeling when you're there, sat outside next to the sea, eating every day. It's just nice, isn't it?
It's lovely. The evenings are fantastic. I say little restaurants dotted around a tiny beach and harbour, really. And like you say, it's gorgeous food. If you like wine and things like that, there's lovely wine. And you walk past a restaurant and they, oh, hello, you were in here last night. Did you enjoy it? But there's nobody dragging you to a table. It's just so lovely, so friendly. And the food, as you say, is just gorgeous.
And I think the other thing that I think is great from our perspective is, we don't stay in top 5-star hotels on bucket list trips. That's not what we're about. We are more on the budget side of things when we stay in nice places, but they're not luxurious or 5-star. But I think if you look at I've been going back to the same hotel and the same dive center and using them for the past 20 years of my career. And I know you've been going there now for 6-7 years with me. Like, to see the changes that have been made in the hotel and where we stay, I think it's only getting better and better in it. And I think bucket listers, when they arrive there, having everything in the same place, because where you stay is where the dive center is. There's a bar and restaurant there with live. Everything is in one place, and I think that kind of really creates a lovely group trip atmosphere on this one, because the group are all together in the same place. It's a nice place to sit and have a drink after a dive. It's a nice place to eat in the evening if you want to, and I think that really makes it for a nicer trip now than what it used to.
Oh, it's great. And what is also lovely is all the dive instructors, they like it so much, they don't go home. They stay after work for a while. And then they're sitting around talking, and what you actually see is a group of people who all like each other, and they're all so professional with us and friendly, and come on over, have a chat, and how did you enjoy today? The community atmosphere in that hotel is absolutely lovely. And I want to say something about it. We are more towards the budget end, but that hotel, it's absolutely pristine in its decor. It's tasteful. It's only a small hotel, but everything is. I went back to my room, and it was cleaning day. The beds had been changed, and it's absolutely crisp and white and lovely. And the guy doing the room had a squeegee, and he was squeegeeing and polishing the shower glass in the room. I mean, the whole place it's just so beautifully, well, it's modern, new and kept, and it's improving all of the time. So it's just a lovely place to stay. I would certainly take any of my family there, and I've got some fussy people in my family, I can tell you. It's just lovely.
I think the one thing that I don't think that the trip gets enough is the value for money that you get from that Gozo trip. And I mean, I can't even think what the cost is off the top of my head now, but it's just over £1,000, I think, for the 8 days. And like when you look at now that it includes the open water course, which, you know, even if you went diving in the UK, an open water course is going to probably cost you around £550 to do an open water course in the UK. And you're getting an 8-day holiday, staying in a nice place, in a nice hotel. Like, you're getting
a la carte breakfast included.
Yeah. You're getting all of that for the money, and you're getting to dive in lovely visibility in warm water.
Warm.
Yeah.
Warm.
I think that's the best thing about that trip is purely the value for money that you get from it. And I think it's a really it's not a difficult trip for us to sell, but it kind of, we advertise it as a learn to scuba dive trip. But obviously what we are seeing now is it's not purely just to learn to scuba dive. There are, you know, obviously we go out there either, I mean, like the last time, both me and you went out on the trip. And, you know, we had a couple of people who were already scuba divers that were diving with us every day and fun diving and seeing the island itself. And I just love that about, I think the thing I love about Gozo, which what makes it such an amazing destination for diving, is the fact that you can shore dive pretty much most of the island. Yeah. Like, you know, and because it's such a small island, there is always diving available somewhere. There's always somewhere you can get in. If the wind's coming from one direction, you go to the other side of the island and you can get in there, and it's, you know, a lot calmer and you can still get a dive in. And I think you just haven't got that faff of having to think about every day, oh, I've got to get on a boat again. I'm going out on a boat diving. Like, it's just such a nice way of diving, shore diving, I think.
But also what we offer is, don't we? So if you are a diver, then if you want to do your advanced diving, you can do that on the course. I'd pay for, obviously. And I did my most rigorous course I've ever done, the rescue diver I did out there.
Yeah.
That was, you know, the instruction, the quality of the course, and well, just the whole thing of it. The whole thing was incredible. I mean, massive value for money if you're going out there to do something like that within our framework.
And that's within the price as well. So that's what makes that one, you know, it's a great trip. I think value for money, but more importantly, the location is just amazing as well. And at the end of the trip, there's 2 free days. And you can decide on those 2 free days if you want to go and explore the island. And we have, you know, they've got one of the red hop-on, hop-off buses on Gozo, and quite a lot of people go in, explore with that, or you can go and do more diving. And obviously, Dave and I generally opt for the more diving option and carry on spending some time under the water when we can. So that's number 5 on your list then.
Yes.
What comes in number 4 then?
Well, number 4 is completely different. Quote Monty Python. That's the Sahara in Morocco, and this is all your fault.
that made my top 5. That was on my top 5.
Yeah, well, this is all your fault. I was happy doing mountains and a bit of diving, and then you came back from doing that for the first time and said, "Dave, you have got to come on this trip." And I thought, oh God, he wants someone to carry his bags or something. I don't know.
Brush the sand out of my shoes. I want.
Yeah. What a trip that is! I don't know where this. Well, Morocco. I love Morocco anyway, and we go to Toucan and places like that. And that was, you know, I just thought I've got to do. Morocco's here definitely, and the Sahara I think wins. And the reason it wins is because it completely defies the popular conception of what a desert trip would be like. It is not all sand. In fact, of all the world deserts, only 20% of the desert itself is sand. The rest is stony desert. It's not riding on camels like a touristy thing. It's a proper trek / walk for a week, 5 days in the desert, and every day is different. And I have to really stop myself now because there are so many surprises that happen. I do not want to give them all away just on a podcast, but just some highlights. One day we walked down. I've said this all before, but we walked down an ancient riverbed. Now, this riverbed is probably 300 yards wide. It's smooth rock. It's been smoothed over millennia. There's absolutely no water in it because there's no water in the desert. So this had a river in many, many eons ago. Walking along this beautiful riverbed, and then there were waterfalls. Then another massive river joins it, and there is a huge chasm really that you walk down. Well, you're walking on the bottom of an ancient riverbed. It's just amazing. It is just amazing. I'll just mention a couple of other things that really leap out. Is that when we're trekking, we never see anyone else. Well, that's not quite true because you've got a good story about that, and we have met some a group walking in the opposite direction once. But one place where we end up is a real nomad encampment, and we go there, and luckily one of our guides, Hassan, has a fantastic relationship with the nomads, and we get invited into a tent. This is not a tourist attraction at all. This is somebody's home, and we get invited in, and it's looked after by, they say she's 90 plus, a 90-year-old lady. It is her home. And we get invited in, and the traditional mint tea is made for us over embers inside the tent. And everyone who's done this, who's been in there, has come out feeling, a bit like going under the water. They've been to another world, really. And there's so much to take in there. So that's just two elements. Other things happen and are experienced, but for me, that geologically, it's just, that sounds boring. It is an amazing place to be in. And secondly, the people who actually live in it are just incredible. And they live a life that is so different to ours, but in the same way, so understandable. It's just an amazing place. I'm going back to this word spiritual again, Keith, aren't I? Sorry about that.
I think you're right there in the sense of, again, we were both teachers in previous lives before we saw the light and decided it was much easier to work in this industry. Yeah. And going on that desert trip, you have a geography lesson without even understanding you're having a geography lesson. Like, I always remember the first time I did it, and to come away going, like, I've learned more in that last hour with our local guide about desert formations and how deserts are formed and everything else than I have doing geography at school. It was just being there and actually being able to see it and having everything there in front of you, and him saying rocks fall from there, crash down, stones like blow around, make sand, dunes. Like, it was literally that simple. And you're like, oh, I really appreciate where a desert comes from now. And then, even to the fact that, going back, and this is probably my naivety, was how he just drew a map of the world in the sand.
Yes.
And then went northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, deserts. And you were like, actually, yeah, when you think of a globe, that's exactly how it is. But, and he's not an educator. He wasn't there to teach us. That's not what his job was there to do. But they're just so interested and want to give you information and make it in such a simple way because of the English language barrier.
Yeah. Well, I taught geography, and I'm not. It came absolutely alive for me. The whole everything about how the place was formed, the weather we were having, because I've been at different times of year now, and understanding that, where the water, the underground water, where that comes up, why it comes up there, camels drinking out of a little hole in the sand, and what's that? All this water there, it's just it's just so much. And
but like you say, it's not an educational trip. It is a trekking trip.
But
I think the whole point of what you're trying to make there is the fact that you're on this trek, but at the same time, it's not you're not just with your head down trekking across the desert for 5 days, slugging along. It actually is cultural. It is educational. You do learn so much, and there's so much more you're getting out of the day. And I think the point you made earlier is a really important one, because if you land in Marrakesh and you walk around the souk, there will be people trying to sell you Sahara Desert trips in it. Come to the Sahara, and you'll drive for like 2 hours outside of Marrakesh and go to this little bit of desert that they're calling the Sahara. But for us, it's getting on a bus for an 8-hour trip to get down into the real Sahara. I mean, we're on the Algerian border. Like we couldn't be any deeper into the Sahara if we tried. And I think it's quite funny where you said about the nomads. That would be the worst place to ever build a tourist attraction if they wanted it to be a tourist attraction, which is how it's not a tourist attraction, because there are no, they'll be waiting for days, weeks, months before the next tourists appear.
Yeah. Then it's definitely like that. And the other thing is, this is to do with the quality of our guides and really bucket listers, is that the particular nomad encampment we go to, the old lady won't have some people there. Some groups come and she says, "No, I don't want you. You're rude. You're not courteous. I can see you don't want to understand how I live." Now, that's not articulated in English in any way. She just puts up her hand and says, "No." When we arrive with our particular guide, and she knows you and she knows me now, obviously, it's just like it's like a homecoming almost. Come on in, come on. It's just so. I don't know. I think everybody feels. I do every time I go. Feel very special because of that.
And I think the one thing about that trip that I think surprises our clients the most is the food. And I think they think they're going to be going through the desert for 5 days and they're going to be, really be roughing it. But I think the biggest surprise, and when you read, the reviews that come in about the trip afterwards, like food is one of the biggest things that's always mentioned. And it's how do they cook that food in the middle of the desert?
And how do they, Keith? Because there's one place we stop and it's a clump of old bush trees. And we turn up there, we rock up there, there's a camel outside, and there is Ali, the cook. He's hidden behind the tree with a little fire going, and he's got the other cameleers with him, and they're preparing food. And out comes fantastic salads and lentil curry and just everything you could want, really. Just from this little hideaway in the bushes, it's incredible.
Yeah, and I always remember the time when, like Hassan, I love Hassan's pieces. Like he guides on Toubkal for us, he guides on the Sahara for us.
He's my brother.
And I always remember we lost Hassan once, and it was actually we had just been to the nomad village, and we had left the nomad village, and we were walking along, and Hassan wasn't with us, and I just thought, oh well, Hassan is, thanking the nomad people and having a conversation with them, and he'll catch us up. And then next minute, Hassan comes wandering down with a lamb over his shoulder, where he is, we need fresh meat for tonight. We're running out of meat. like we have to carry it in the desert. So I've got us a lamb for this evening, and they cooked up a lovely lamb tagine for us with that, and it was, it's just real.
Yes, it is. That's how you keep meat fresh. It's it's alive, really. And there aren't any vegetables growing in the desert, although there's always a vegetarian option, I have to say, food taken with us. So that's how you're living the life, really, the real life.
Well, that trip made my list as well, and for many of the reasons why you said. Number 3 for you then, Dave.
This is again an incredible trip. This is Jordan. Going to
and this was the one you missed off your list. This was the one that
it is the one. Oh my God, it's number 3 now. Now I've thought about it. Oh my goodness, they're all so close. Jordan. I don't know. You start off in downtown Amman. Now, downtown any city to me is not really what I'm about, but I've met so many kindnesses in Amman, and the groups I've taken have as well. It's historically it's interesting. I mean, part of Jordan obviously is about history, because I'll tell you more about Petra in a minute. You go to Jerash, see the Roman ruins, and you walk along a road that's got chariot ruts in it really clearly. Not just, can you pick it out? It's chariot ruts, But downtown Amman, it's a busy Arab place. But the kindnesses of the people there. Well, one evening, a group I had said, because it's a Muslim, there are very few places that sell alcohol. One group said, we would like a drink today, if you can find us one. And there's a famous street there. And I said, yeah, I'll get you to it. Anyway, it was quite late. Most places were closed. We're going along, and there were a group of youths, and they came up and they said, "Oh, you lost. What do you want?" And I said, well, "We're looking for a place to go and have a drink." Oh, I'll take you. One just detached and took us, chatting all the way. Took us all the way. Now I thought, oh, right, this is it. When we get there, this is going to be the hard sell. I want so many dirhams from each of you, or whatever. I look, this young dude really just said, "Oh, we're in here." And we went anyway, and he turned around and he said, "Oh, I hope you have a lovely, lovely time. Welcome to Amman." And off he went. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. It's an inner city. Well, anyway, so there's that. Another time, we're looking for a cash point, right? And there were all sorts of old guys selling stuff on the side of the road. Anyway, this place where the cash point had security and a door and all the rest of it, and I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get through it, and nobody could. One of the guys, he had customers at his store. So, obviously said to him, "Oh, just wait a minute." Crossed the road, came over, because saw we were struggling, showed us how to go in, and then went back to his stall. It's just not what you think a bustling Arab market place, all the cut and thrust of selling and all the rest of it is going to be like. And I found Amman, just Amman city, it's full of very, very friendly people. And you don't see many tourists either. But anyway, highlights. Walking to, I mentioned Jerash, which is fascinating, but walking to Petra, what a place. As you know, Keith, I went one year and I said, "Keith, I've got to do the next trip because I can't take it all in." Petra, I mean, everyone can look it up for themselves, but it's just, you cannot believe it. You go through Little Petra, you think that's it. And then when you actually walk in the back door of Petra and down through, it's just absolutely incredible. I don't know what I can say about it. People can look and find out about it, but it's one of those places that the next morning there's a chance to getting early. Everybody on the trip, every time I've taken it, has been up at 4:30 in the morning to get at the gate at 5 o'clock to go back in again until we move on. It's absolutely fascinating place. Fascinating. And then we go down to Aqaba and go out on a proper dive boat and snorkel in the Red Sea, which is like jumping into an aquarium. And then on to the last day onto the Dead Sea to do some floating and mud work. And it made my skin so smooth, Keith. You'd be surprised.
That's the lovely thing about that trip, I think, is the amount of inclusions that are in it. And I think it really does tick Jordan off. And I know, obviously with everything that's happening in the Middle East at the minute, it's kind of in the middle of everything. And I imagine that a lot of people aren't heading there at the moment. And I hope for their sake that they get tourism back to the numbers that they had pre this. But it's the trouble with tourism, and it's the trouble with countries, isn't it, that it always has some effect. But the last time you went, you didn't notice any difference. Everything was still the same.
Exactly.
We're still being told it's safe to travel to Jordan. But obviously I'm fully aware that it's it's on people's radars and people are nervous of it. But hopefully it won't be too long before things are back to normal for Jordan.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating place, and there's plenty to see, plenty to do. And again, there's some beautiful things that happen. Walking out into a wadi, which is a valley, like a desert valley, and with a guide, and then working your way through the rocks, through the canyons, and then collecting wood and making a fire, and then making tea for you, and you're just sitting on a huge rock overlooking desert, wadi, nature reserve, with the Dead Sea in the distance. It's just, it's just really a sight for sore eyes. That's too much of a cliche. It's more than that. It's just you just sit there and take it in and take it in and take it in. Everybody, not just me.
And then, so are you going to split these two, Dave?
Or what am I going to do, Keith?
We're on to your last two, Dave. And,
I know. What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. But I'm going to put these two together, really, for different reasons. I'm going to start with Patagonia. It's just I don't know where to start with it, really. I always say, one of the things I say about Patagonia is this: you're on a trek, and every stream you walk, just so people get a hold of this, every stream you walk past, every stream, not how big, how wide, and small, you can put your cup in and drink the water. It is absolutely pure. It's like going back to the beginning of time. The place is unspoiled. There's no pollution. Beautiful glacial lakes. Anywhere there's water, you can drink it. It's so clean. Everything is absolutely clean and pristine. And it's just a wonderful trek. It's a famous trek called the W Trek, where you go to see the three towers and the glacial lake, and the whole trip is about 1 minute you're walking next to glaciers or underneath them, and the next minute you're beautiful blue glacial lakes. The weather moves all the time. You're carrying everything. Except a tent and a sleeping bag, and a freshly laundered sleeping bag, and a new tent is available every time we stop on this particular trip I took. And you're walking along, and 1 minute it's raining a bit, and then the sun is out and it's glorious, and then the wind starts to blow, and if you're in an exposed place, you get blown over. It's not cold, but you get blown over. You're at the bottom of the world, and the road you travel down is called the End of the World Highway. And you realize when you come away from this, when you finally get on a bus to come away from this, after you've crossed a glacial lake on a catamaran, which is another experience, you realize how far away you are from anywhere, because you get on you think, oh, it's an ordinary coach. You get on, and you're traveling down a dirt road for miles and miles until you join the end of the world highway. So and then you make your way back to Punta Arenas or Punta or Puerto Natales. So you do feel 8,500 miles away from home. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's like I liken it to being in a David Attenborough film. One of the options we've got is kayaking out to the Patagonia ice sheet. Now that might not be everybody's cup of tea. You can see the Patagonia ice sheet, but when you go out there in a kayak and you've got all the safety gear, it's totally safe, unless you choose to stand up in the kayak and jump in, which no one would. You're kayaking past icebergs. And you can't get too close to the ice sheet because it's carving and you can see the ice breaking off, but you're out there on the water with it, and then perhaps 2 other kayaks. That's it. I mean, remote. It's just, and yet you're camping and staying where there are lodges where they do fantastic food, people of all ages, all nationalities eating in there. So you end up sitting next to somebody from I don't know, Alaska, and everyone is just talking about, what did you see today? What did you do today? It's one of those, it's the trekkers trekking paradise, I think. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I say unspoiled. It's a camping trek. You've got to be fit for it, but it's certainly no more difficult than anything else that we do. It's a long way to get to. But when you get there, I mean, you're rewarded again and again by just what you experience. I don't know what else to say, Keith.
No. And you've done a podcast on Patagonia, and you've given us all those details in the past, so we can understand why that one has made it towards the top end of your list.
Yes,
and you are putting it alongside Dave's trusty faithful,
and the Annapurna Trek. Now it's the first Nepal trek I did, so that's. But it isn't just about that. Everybody who's been on it, I think, could join in with this and say it is a singular experience. You're out more in the wilds of Nepal with local people, families making a living. You're walking alongside. Annapurna is actually a cluster of mountains. Annapurna 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you walk alongside. As 2 of these are 8,000 meter mountains, so Everest type height. You're not looking at it from a distance. You're walking alongside just the other side of the valley. Annapurna 2, 3, and 4, and Gangapurna, which is a 7,800 meter mountain. So, it's hardly small, and what I love about it is that you go. I've said all this before. 5 climate zones you go through. You walk through rhododendron forest. You walk through alpine forest. A place where we stop, and everybody's experienced this. Upper Pisang, where there are 5 golden eagles that are hovering most of the afternoon, and when you're sitting down on the side of the mountain on a terraced little ledge where there's having a cup of coffee, down they come and swoop down right next to you. I mean, it's just amazing. You go over a snowy highest navigable pass in the world, higher than base camp by a few meters. You go over that, and then you drop down to a very arid Tibetan type place. Holy men sitting in the snow, just melting the snow, wearing just a loincloth. Keith, I'll go on and on about it. Again, I've done a podcast on this. It is just a place that's so much variety, so much to see and experience. And again, the Nepalese people, you're the same as me about this. They love to look after you. They're not doing it in a kind of monetary way. They just love to look after you, and you really feel that warmth all the time. Just yesterday, Raj, one of the guys, got in touch and said, "Oh, hi Dave, how you doing? I'm this and that. When are you coming out again?" The friendship is maintained on and on. It's lovely.
Yeah, I think, Nepal made my list with a different trek. But I think Nepal, if you love your trekking, is certainly up there as a bucket list destination that you should add to your bucket list if you haven't done so already. Dave, thanks ever so much for giving us that top 5 from you. Like, obviously, there are bucket list trips that you haven't been on. Out of the list of bucket list trips, what's the one that you think that you haven't had the opportunity to do yet, that you think, oh, actually, that's one that I would really, I want to get on?
I think it's the one that you're going to lead. So I'm not ousting you on it because I know I can. But I think the gorilla trek, that does. There are many that appeal, but that new one of the new ones that does look fantastic.
Well, I'll let you know.
You'll tell me all about it when you get back.
I'll tell you all about it when I get back. Dave, thanks ever so much for coming on. Hopefully you enjoyed that listening and it's given you some inspiration to think of some of those trips. And, there's a lovely mix of trips in there that Dave's done, from scuba diving to trekking to Jordan, which is what we class as one of our best of trips, where, there is a little bit of adventure travel in there. There is a bit of trekking in there, but it's not all about trekking. So there are, of Dave's top 5 list there are quite a few trekking trips in there, but then there's a best of and also a scuba diving trip in there as well. So there's a nice variety there. And let's also point out that, these are achievable. Dave is now 71 years of age and is still leading these trips. So don't sit there saying, oh, there's no way I could do that. There's no way I could do this. Dave's still scuba diving. He's still trekking. So, hats off to Dave. And hopefully you can get some inspiration from that to think, yeah, I can easily go and do that if this man can do it. Dave, again, thanks ever so much. You've got a Sahara Trek coming up this year. Yeah. That's your last one of the year then?
Yes, that's it then, until February when I go to the Sahara again.
I've got a Gozo trip coming up. So we've got some highlights there that you can see why we love doing these trips and go back again and again and again. Anyway, thanks ever so much for listening. Like I said, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've got some inspiration from it. And I will be back next week with another episode of the Bucketlister Podcast. But until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucketlister Podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.